Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to the beginning of Series 5 in our work with the substratum of all things. Now, I suspect that this is going to be a little bit shorter program tonight. I think some of us, maybe many of you too, have been working with the vigil now for about 80 days straight, ever since November 1st, right before the election. And it has been strenuous work because the forces for the election, against the election really, against a fair election, were very great. And we had all kinds of nonsense, dangerous nonsense coming from the previous administration, and a whipping up of some kind of fervor that led to an attack on the, at least America's temple of democracy, which is our Capitol building, and the Senate and the House of Representatives, with 5 people, one way or another, killed in the process. Anyway, many of us, as you know, have been attempting to hold back those forces. So here in Finland, it's been pretty late that we've been working, and so I think Tui and I are trying to recover just a little bit. And I know many of you have felt a little drained, that is the exhaustion factor. But okay, that's in the world of Maya, right? That's in the, not Maya the way the Tibetan describes it, because there he calls it that vital, unthinking, emotional mess. What a what a description. That vital, unthinking, emotional mess. It refers basically to the etheric and to the physical subplanes of, the very first, the very lowest of the solar planes or the systemic planes. But in this kind of discussion that we're having, beginning of Series 5, and may the light break through for all of us, by Maya we mean something different. We mean it in the older Brahmanic, Vedantic sense. We mean really anything that is not the boundless, immutable principle. Boundless, immutable principle. You could meditate on that your whole life. And there is a kind of, the highest form of Maya, in my opinion, because that's all I can really offer you at this point. I think that one has to, in a way, be in a state which is supra-universal, beyond any universe. I know that sounds strange. In order to really understand what might be this type of Maya that I'm going to refer to. At least, again, this is my speculation, done somewhat in the abstract mind. This is what I would call supra-universal Maya. And it means that the minute there appears a creative transcendental deity, somehow emerging out of the boundless immutable principle, the absoluteness, how that emergence occurs, well, I couldn't say, but let's just say that the boundless immutable principle is not per se the actor. Neither, the absoluteness is not the actor. The actor is the supra-universal deity, which, strangely enough, eventually, it will be discovered, I think, that we are, every one of us, every being in cosmos is essentially that which is beyond cosmos, beyond the universe, and the entire articulated, discriminated, absolute infinity is the greatest example of any kind of Maya. It is a sort of the sub-absolute Maya, and yet super universal. Maybe I write something down here. I've got a lot of flashing going on here. I don't know why, but I hope it doesn't lead to a runaway program. So anyway, let's see if I can get this straight. So this it's a sub. I don't know why that's flashing that way. I just don't know. Sub-absolute, supra, and actually these should all be in capitals. Sub-absolute, supra, universal, Maya. It's all the same thing. Now that's the highest form of Maya. And let's see. Are you seeing the flashing, Michael?
What flashing?
I don't see any flashing,
There's
and
no
everything comes fine.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's so
So
strange.
what is flashing there?
A black rectangle is flashing on my screen.
I don't see anything. Mine is fine.
Okay. Well then,
It's just a program in the background, a notification of some sort in the background for you. We're not seeing it.
you're not seeing it. Okay. Very good. Let me just get rid of a few things, okay? Maybe that will help, huh? Not much. So, the other kind of Maya, which is, as I say, the Tibetan is confining himself to what is very practical on the etheric physical plane. But the other kind of Maya is anything within the universe. And that takes us back to the old Brahmanical Vedantan idea that the entire universe is Maya. It is differentiated. It arises from absolute infinitude and from the great supra-universal deity. And every Maya, every universe, is different in manifestation, but identical in essence. So we're not really, it's good to know about those things as a possibility. But of course, they represent nothing that we can really handle. The one thing that maybe we can begin to do is to work within the universe, which means the consciousness of all perceptions, and there's really only one perceiver who has divided itself into manifold objectifications. The one thing we can do at our lowly stage of, I'm going to use this term, pracritic immersion. You've probably heard me use this term before. It means immersion into matter, which is the same thing as immersion into self-division. So the one thing we can do in our state of immersion into self-division is to try to come up with a feeling for the essence of things. Now, you know, we're all concerned about the Maya at our particular level of consciousness. You know, will there be righteousness? Will there be evil instead of righteousness? Will we progress? Will we fall back? Will there be progress for humanity or delay? You know, all of these are essential questions within the realm of Maya, in the way that I've just defined it. That is, any self-perception in universe. Okay, I'm going to call Maya the universe and any self-perception. Got to move this. Sorry. Within universe. In other words, when this limited universe occurs, then there is Maya and any limited universe. So what can we do? Not much, but at our own lowly level of very great limitation in scope of consciousness, we can try to tune in with and become actually the essence of everything we perceive. And that is basically, you know, the theme of tonight's meditation. It's we have a very powerful mantra, and I'll just say using the powerful mantra, you'll recognize it. Naught is but me. Okay. Now there are other mantras you can use, The Tibetan has given us, I still persist. If you are taking the first ray approach, I am the worker and the work. That's the third ray mantram. Naught is. Let's see if I can find that for us, because it's very powerful. I still persist. The first ray mantram. So let's see here. Here it is. The mantram is always at the end of the little statement. Let the word go forth, I still persist. Ray 3, I am the worker and the work, the one that is. Maybe people on a deep third ray will find that useful in identifying with the essence. Ray 4, beauty and glory veil me not. I stand revealed, I am. And here, this is too difficult to see. So what I will do is make it and here's for ray 5. It's a very powerful one. I mastered energy, for I am energy itself. The master and the mastered are but one. And then I am the seeker and the sought. I rest. That's for ray 6. When you finally find that what you've been looking for is what's been doing the looking. And ray 7, the creative work is over. I, the creator, am. Naught else remains but me. But since we are in a second ray solar system, and the great synthetic ray is the indigo ray, on which all other rays, including indigo, are found as subrays, we will use the very powerful second ray mantram. Let the word go forth, reverberating through the silence. Naught is but me. Now, if you could live your life and realize deeply that one thing, it would be a real achievement. So after a lot of, complexity of thought that we've had, what is a point? Can you collapse the whole universe to a point? What is an infinitesimal? How is it, in a way, opposite from absolute infinitude? Is everything an infinitesimal or an absolute infinitesimal? There are so many almost mathematically complicated questions that we've gone through and will go through again, because to have a mental understanding of them is one thing, but to have a deep realization about them is quite another thing. But still, I always come back to, at the beginning and at the end, I always come back to naught is but me. And that is such a profound statement. So easily said, oh yeah, it's all one, you know. Oh yeah, it's one. But to realize that that one actually is, to detect it, and then to know that it is you. After you strip away all the things you thought you might be, you know, in our field, a lot of people are interested in initiation, so I'm a first degree initiate, second, third, fourth, fifth, what, all that. I'm a planetary logos, I'm a solar logos, whatever. Those are all limited assessments of what we really are. And that is this great self, just like Yogananda, you know, he had his self-realization fellowship. That gets right to the point. All of this is about self-realization. And when we say self, we mean the essence. We mean something, and this is important, something that cannot be reduced any further. You know, you always think you can take something further and somehow find something more essential. But when you're dealing with the self, the true and ultimate self, it is irreducible. There's just nothing else that it can be but itself. So we begin to look for that right here in our lowly state, mostly fed by the senses and the lower senses at that. We begin to see if we can find that, because our normal life within the personality does not easily reveal that. And it takes work, I think, a lot of work. And that's why I'm pulling up this sort of list of the kingdoms. You can go 1-7 or you can go 7-1. In a way, the mineral kingdom is the first kingdom. And in our list of kingdoms for our planet and solar system, the kingdom of solar lives is the last. Now, of course, we can go much beyond that. But, you know, keeping it confined to the solar system itself and to our planet, these would be the operative kingdoms. And you recognize that our place here, that we are squarely within the kingdom, the human kingdom. And we are pushing on the borderland of entering the kingdom of souls, in which you could be still a human being. Once you enter the kingdom of planetary lives, where I think Chohans can be found, we are no longer They say, we are no longer men as are the masters. It tells us in one of the rules. Is it rule 6? I'm not sure right now, but from Rays and the initiations. And when we get into the solar lives, we're dealing with something still higher, which, like Sanat Kumara and the planetary logoi, the disciples of the solar logos and the solar logos himself. So our little meditation today will be using our powerful indigo mantram, Naught is but me, just trying to welcome you all here, you know. Thank you for being here. Just want to see who's here. And we'll see if we can so identify, at least with some of these kingdoms, that when we see representations of them, that feeling of deep, essential I-ness comes over us. And it becomes more than just words, you know, more than just words. So let's, you know, that will be probably all we'll do tonight because, well, for many reasons. So we try at least to achieve that level of disidentification. See, first, disidentification, right? From the factors of the personality, so that we can really begin to see and to identify. It seems that in order to identify well the real thing, it's almost like you have to disidentify first. In other words, you begin with the idea that you are different. You know, the normal you, are different from everything else you perceive. And you end up with the realization that you are the same as everything you perceive. But I can't stress enough how subtle is the changeover between being different and being the same. So select in your mind, your consciousness, any kind of member of the mineral kingdom. Maybe you'll want to select a jewel, perhaps, like a diamond or a sapphire or an emerald, ruby, amethyst, whatever. Or maybe it'll be a rock or a piece of metal or, something that you can visualize. Which is a member of the mineral kingdom. You choose your own. And study it a little bit from the angle of the form, which is the quality of what you have selected to imagine. But our goal is not perception and the naming of the qualities of the item, the image, but we want to drop all captivation by the form, and we want to say to ourselves, naught is but me. That the essence of this mineral is identical with the essence of myself. So work with that a little bit. The mineral kingdom is rather far removed from the human, so it may seem like a bit of a stretch. But see if you can infusive, enter into the state of infuception. And as you say, naught is but me, you get a strong sense of the identicality of this item with what you are. You may have a moment when you feel yourself slipping out of form perception and slipping into essentialized infuception. And you may find that the heart holds the key to this type of identification. Okay, we can work on that. Now, in your imagination, select a member of the vegetable kingdom. There are just so many possibilities, whether it's a tree, a flower, a fruit, whatever. And look at the form of what you've selected. But realize that there is something more essential than the form. And it is identical with what you are. No difference. See if you can find the naught is but me in relation to this item you have selected from the vegetable kingdom. When you lock in that sense of being identical with that which you are imagining, you have entered the state of contemplation. And of course, what this means is that the essence of the jewel or the mineral and the essence of the life you have chosen to contemplate in the vegetable kingdom and the essence of yourself are all identical. In other words, you are those beings. Naught is but me. Now it gets maybe a little easier as we approach the human kingdom. The animal kingdom is the neighbor, immediate neighbor of the human kingdom. And, especially the domestic animals are very close. They begin to have some kind of psyche that we can recognize as, well, rather close to our own in some ways. So choose an animal, either one, that you know, or a member of one of the divisions of the animal kingdom. Eventually you could choose all, but, for purposes of this exercise, just choose one. And if you study the form, of course, you'll find it is different from your own, of course. But what if you really begin to slip into the beingness of that animal, your own beingness slips into the beingness of the animal, and finds no difference. Naught is but me. And if you are successful at this, you can extend the realization to any member of the animal kingdom. It's as if the form makes no difference at all. It's not about the form. It's not about quality. You might think of it as a kind of pervading. It's a Neptunian kind of act, pervading the object of your imagination or perception. You know, and you probably have studied Euclidean geometry somewhere along the line, and you remember the theorem, things equal to the same thing are equal to each other. So in essence, there is no difference between the identity of the animal you are imaginatively studying, the plant, the mineral, it's beyond the level of difference. Now we'll do one more tonight. And of course, we could extend it endlessly. And while this should be the easiest to realize or identify as, it's still not easy because it's so different from how we normally function in this world of differentiation, of differentiated perceptions. So choose another human being. and you see the difference in form, of course, the difference between your form and the form of that human being that you're imagining at the moment. However, is there some level of sameness, identicality, that you can find? This does not mean that in regular life you ignore the qualities of such a person, because that's functioning in relativity. But you are trying to function in non-relativity. And until we can do that, we may become aware of many interesting things about any other person. But we have missed the essence. It's as if as if all form arises from sameness. But though distinct from every other form, never loses its sameness with all those others. So until you have found the sameness of any other human being, for one example, you have not found the real human being. And we have to work on this, of course. It's just a number of levels more refined than our normal perception of any other human being. And so what we have so far is that though different in form, the human being, the animal, the plant, the mineral are all identical. And let me call this the intimacy of identicality. It's one thing to understand others, another thing to love others, but to be others. Now that is the utmost intimacy of a spiritual kind. And we will simply, after this reflection, we will sound the Om. There's one more sound you can make, and that's just the O. Okay, thank you, friends. You know, I realize that this is quite a departure from, even our spiritual training, which is filled with specifics and is gradual and deals with time and with space. Now, in non-relativistic apprehension or thinking, we're not really dealing with time and space. Time and space are categories of perception, all based on limitation. So, you might ask, why spend the time in our myopic world to enter timelessness and spacelessness and maybe other Kantian categories? But I think that when we slip into this definitely unusual type of apprehension or identification, it's like depth after depth will open up and we'll be saying, oh, that's what you meant. We can say that to any of the great teachers. They may say something. Oh, we didn't know. We were still within our own categories. Then something happens, and oh, well, the word oh, of course, is the monadic word in a way, along with the ah, but that's a different one also can be looked into. But the O is beyond the Om. Oh, oh. And even though, at our stage we cannot be expected to carry the realization of the O all the time, that would be constant monadic realization, we can move towards that. And one day, and on increasing days, and more frequently, we really will be in the O, with all of the surprise that comes with that. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat box here. And Jesse saying the center of stillness, surrounded by sound, by vibration, because, yeah, indeed, vibration is movement, and movement is relativity. You have to have two for movement, And this is non-dualistic apprehension, an NDA. So vibration is not the ultimate root of everything. The stillness is, the oneness. But when we get into division, vibration can occur and then distinguishes one partiality from another. The first animal that we all have and know excuse me, is the body. Well, that is true to those who think about it. It's animated, animal. It's an instrument. And its essence is what we are. But we have to get used to dropping the customary categories of identification. You'll note that in our present civilization, body consciousness is ubiquitous. It is predominant. And then, of course, it rises from there through the arts and through mentation and so forth. But still, modern humanity is very concerned with the externality that we call the body. And yet, in essence, it's no different from anything else. It is, naught is but me. But we have to, but that's a non-formal statement. It does not have to do with what we consider form to be. It has to do with irreducible essence. Then it becomes correct. And you're saying that the first human essence begins when heart, mind, heart begin to function as one, a unity, one unit, a unity. I guess we could say that we certainly begin to appreciate intimacy of relationship when that happens. It's a sort of a Jupiter-Venus thing, heart and mind. And it's a stage along the way, as you say here. It begins there. And with the recognition and perception of pure light and pure sound, well, you know, pure sound, we might have to relegate that almost to the akasha and to the monadic level. But the idea of purity of light, I think, as you say here, goes with the soul. When absolute brotherhood, sisterhood is recognized, planetary life comes into view. And I suppose, again, we'll have to define our terms. Absolute brotherhood, sisterhood. It's going to be, from the pragmatic point of view, a Venusian Libran realization coming at the end or in the last decade of the age of Aquarius. And we can divide each decade into 720 years. And that's when this more planetary logoic perception will be real to us. And of course, it's just the beginning. Now, if you study Gemini, you know, from page 332, I think, of esoteric astrology. I serve myself. I serve my brother. I serve the One. And that's a step along the way to the Leo, which finally ends with I am that and that am I. Identification is a very deep thing, but we can begin to approach it seriously somewhere in the building of the Antakarana between the second and third initiations. Sanat Kumara, identification, Shambhala, those things can begin to come into range. Nothing happens overnight. Heike is saying, yeah, and that's exactly it. Can you explain why just the O, not bringing the M of matter into it? Yes, that's it. Sometimes it's the M of mind, which is kind of shocking when you read Initiation, Human and Solar. But sometimes the M is the M of matter, and the idea is it's the great Jupiterian sound, according to Rudolf Steiner. And as we know, Jupiter, hierarchically, is the ruler of the monadic plane. Hierarchical ruler of Virgo, which rules that plane and all the creative powers thereon. And it is one of the rulers of Pisces, one of them. And Pisces gives us the idea that I leave my father's house, and turning back I save. So Jupiter is the O. It's all inclusive. Now, maybe the Ah is even less constrained. Steiner connects it with Venus, whether, we know that Venus is a less mature planet than Jupiter, but at the same time more rapidly developing within its own system of unfoldment. So yes, that's the answer there. Now sometimes GK will tell us, we'll associate Om with Sanat Kumara. He has so much that he supervises, And as it is sounded forth by him who stands and waits at the very center of the council chamber of the Lord. So Om turns out to be presented in a higher aspect. But it's usually considered the word of the soul, which at our stage is the constrained soul. It's not as opened up as the O or even the Ah. The Ah is probably the most wide open vowel there is. And in Cosmic Fire, we're given Ah, Au, which is equivalent to the O or the Om. And then Aum, Aum. Now, a lot of people use the AUM, and it's kind of the essence of Amen. But remember what he says about Amen. He says it's like a strong wind pinning a man against the wall. That's because it's a word of form related to Brahma. And he advises Brahma, the lower 5 subplanes. he advises the use of the OM. And there's a whole section of a chapter there. It's either in Rule 2 or Rule 3. But it's really worth reading. And then probably we would use these higher words. Now Tui and I have given that a discussion on the meditation in Rule 10, where we have first to use the sound and then the word and then the voice, and all three will suffice. So the sound, we can say, would be associated with O, and then the OM, comes the word of the soul, and then the Aum comes as the voice of the personality, which is aligning itself with the soul and with the monad. That's really a deep meditation. I don't pretend to understand its full depth. Now, going on. You got it. Well, there's still Om. The O still has form. If you look at the degree of relaxation of the lips in forming the O, it is more held, constrained than the aha, ah. So, to me, the real beginningness of things and the beingness would be more related to the ah. The O already has some degree of conscription. In other words, there are ring pass knots there. Let's just say the ah has fewer rings pass knot. It's the most wide open we can be, and yet because we are human and limited, even the ah is a limitation. But it seems to me to be the most original vowel. Aum. Ow. See, when you move from ah to o, ow, ow, there is a conscription or constriction. Oo is even more. Aum. So more and more constriction until we reach matter itself. Is Michael? Okay, and here he's giving us the place to go to Makara for our Series 5 here. Looks like I start a new series every time I get tired out and say, oh, time for a new series. So, and I never know what's going to be in them, but the idea is always the same. Sameness and all that arises from it. Naught is but me. And yes, indeed, we thank BL for, wow, what a lot of work. Getting all this up for everybody. We're very grateful. Heike is saying, could we say that regarding the AUM, the A is boundless, the O, U, gives a ring pass knot? Well, each one is, the U is still more constrained. Now, in Steiner thought, the U is Saturn. The O is Jupiter. when it comes to the he says Venus, and of course, we tend, when we are in a state of deep appreciation, to say, ah. And we also say when we realize something, just like we say, oh, but it's in a way, a letter of awe. But it does begin things, at least as far as the sounds that we can make. If we could truly study the mouth, the tongue, the vocal cords, the breath, we would have an encapsulation of the creative process. I've tried to do that. Sometimes it's not easy, but everything that is worked on here, with all the different variations possible, is related to the third or the creative aspect, and the production of form, throat center. So O and U, yeah, they both give rings past Naught, and M is within. Well, M, from one perspective, M is the most objectified state, and any type of M that is sectioned off, we sometimes hear the Tibetan talking about a logos takes a certain collection of matter, and out of that will make its creation. So that section of matter would be separated from other sections that are involved in other partial creations. This gets into the whole question of what is the boundary of any universe. And it has to do with the extent of self-perception, in my view. When there is no more, the limitation of self-perception determines the extent of the universe, any universe. But that's not true of absolute infinitude. So the M would be somewhat within the ring past Naught. I think you could say it, that portion of matter which is selected. And anyway, this is how you see the movement of the sounds, and it has good ideas. And here's Vivienne. I'm wondering if in the gospel, the feeding of the miracle, gospel miracle, of the feeding of the 5,000, did Jesus attain this state and was able to bring through into matter from there what was needed in the moment? Well, it seems to me that from the ether, one can precipitate anything that Kriya Shakti, this power of manifestational imagination, can produce. So to visualize and work within the ether using Kriya Shakti, one can make all kinds of precipitations. They're not on the dense physical plane yet, but then it's a magical process. The forms we see around us were not on the physical plane either. And yet they are brought through these creative powers that produce the body, and sometimes through magic just produce an appearance which can be made into the substance, into the dense matter itself by an act of precipitation. At that time, Jesus was, well, it was really the Christ at that time, wasn't it? Maybe I have to get my sequence there a little bit straight. Was this after the baptism? If it was after the baptism, for the most part, it was the Christ and all of his abilities, which were in advance of those of the initiate, Jesus. Tried to say, but do you not hear me? I can turn you on there to you. It is first the word, then the Om, and last. Well, actually, I think it says. I think it says use first the sound, and then the Om, and then use the voice. At least in Rule 10. It's my impression. I may be wrong. So here it is, raised initiations. And very quickly, if I can, because I know time is going. Sound, word, voice. And okay, all three, what does it say? All three suffice. That's it. Okay, so here it is, page 190, and I'll show it to you. Work with the sound and know it as the source of power. You're right. Use first the voice. He works up from the personality. Then use the Om, and later use the sound. And, you know, it seems to start from above, but really, in terms of how we can use it, it starts from below. So this is the correct one. And that's important. So thank you on that. Okay. Now, is there... They go out on the breath, yeah. Well, you know, this is interesting because, you know, when you think about, you have a word in mind, but you have to have breath to pass over the vocal cords to enunciate with the voice that particular word which is conceived. Now, just imagine you're saying to yourself the word God or something like that. You can think it all you like, but until the breath is moving, it moves over the vocal cords. God. Now it has been manifested. So, and creates an external sound, even though an internal sound occurred first. So even this has a rather more complexity to it than appears to the eye at first. Okay. Is there anybody that would like to speak And then we will draw this to a close. Maybe not. Okay, maybe not. It's okay. Thank you for writing what you did and for thinking deeply about it. Now, it's always easier to think in terms of relativity than non-relativity. You know, sameness is so utterly simple that it is difficult, given the normal approach of our mind and consciousness. So naturally, the great majority of what we do in the spiritual world will involve relativity. But, you know, every once in a while, we have the possibility of slipping into non-relativity or slipping into non-duality as another term for that. And it probably will surprise us at first because it's so different than our relativistic thinking and perception. And that's what we're trying to do in this kind of, what is it? Discussion, meditation. We're trying to open up the non-relative world, which is always and ever, forever present. And its methods of apprehension are subtle and different from how we would studentially study, you know, something in the relative world. We know how to do that. And we might learn a lot about the relative world. But to learn about non-relativity, that's really different. And we can keep at it, as we must, until the reality of it actually dawns. Now, if there's nothing else, we will close with the great invocation tomorrow morning. Well, you know, we've been doing a lot of work with glamour already, but glamour does not cease. I was reading where the fantastical conspiracy theories of QAnon are breaking up for many of those people who have often a twisted kind of convoluted thinking that never can accept anything at face value. There's always got to be a conspiracy, okay? It's breaking up for them now, for many. And they are in despair, many. And others are still finding more twisted ways of interpreting these subtle signals that are being conveyed by the now former president and all that. What's really interesting is to study the circuitousness of the mind, the tangle, the Gordian knot of the mind, and how it can take what is obvious and just twist and twist and twist until there's no recognition of any truth whatsoever. So that is challenged at the moment. It's a horrible untruth, we might say, and at least for some, they will be released from it. So we will try to keep up our approach to simplicity, at least in this course or this study. For us, it's about simplicity right now, the simplicity of non-relativity. Now, it's of what use is it? I think everyone will have to find out in his or her own way. So let's close with the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, thank you. See some of you at least. I wonder if we'll see me tomorrow morning early for Glamour, because the plots and plans of people who are sadly astray are still going on. So we'll try to, counter that to some extent. So we'll see you for that. And then in the evening, we have a continuation of our work with that magnum opus, A Treatise on Cosmic Fire. So Tuya and I and Michael and all the BL and the the members of the communications group. I don't know if Joe is here or not, but we all wish you the very best. Lots of love and many blessings. And we will be back in touch with you before long. Before long. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. GMT. So we'll see you then. And carrying on with trying to protect humanity from excessive subjugation to glamour. Okay. And let's see, someone else will have to shut it off. I'm going to just turn off the recording. And thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. And stop the recording. And